life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
Hi there, folks. Good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk Sport. This is the NFC Roundtable, the final one of the season. Before we get started with Bo and Sam, and just obviously like everybody else in the football world, Monday's shocking events on the field between the Bills and the Bengals. Like everyone else at Let's Talk Sport, we're praying for Damar. Obviously, the news since Monday has always shown positive steps, and I think the latest is the breathing tube has come out, and he's talking, and he's up and about by the sounds of things, and he's been on a Zoom call with the team this evening or this afternoon. So that's great news. But from everybody at Let's Talk Sport and everybody here on the NFC Roundtable, we're still praying for you, and we hope for a full recovery.
Absolutely. And, a huge shout out to the medical team that was on the field.
Oh, massively, yeah.
I mean, they did such a fantastic job. If that was ever going to happen, I don't know if there could have been a better scenario than how quickly the team doctors and everybody got on the field.
Yeah, I was reading all about it, and, somebody said one of the main medical professions from the University of Cincinnati healthcare, they said that the athletic trainer for the Bills, whoever it was first there and doing the CPR without that, so quickly onto the field, and that saved his life basically because of the CPR that happened so quickly. So amazing work, as you say, top to bottom. Ambulances, the team medical guys, the guys in the hospital have obviously done something amazing, and a shocking thing to see, but obviously a 1 in a million type of scenario. I know it happened to an ice hockey player a few years back as well, where it seems like it's the body's just it's one of those things. If you get a hit at the wrong sort of time as your heart's contracting, it's just one of those freak accidents, and hopefully we never get to see it again. And as hopefully Damar recovers and gets back to doing what he does, and the toy drives. I know the GoFundMe page has absolutely gone through the roof. I think the last I heard it was over $6 million. Whether or not it's still growing is amazing. So it's a situation where a lot of people all came together with the same thought in mind of football really didn't matter, even though it was playoff weekends, and everyone's screaming and shouting about fantasy football championships and everything else. That quickly, very very quickly, everybody realised that hey, football's just a game, and a reminder, I think, to everyone, these guys are out there, and no matter how frustrating it is as fans watching, they are out there putting literally their lives on the line every time they're out there. And I think that resonated with quite a lot of people. Suddenly the remembering of, maybe dialing it down a little bit about being upset because your league didn't finish or you didn't score 12 points that week. Overall, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, it's a bit like how we obviously experience with obviously any sort of, I suppose, soccer fans with the whole Christian Eriksen incident, and I mean the way he's bounced back, and obviously the stuff he's had to go through. You're hoping that these people are built different. They are absolutely a lot of them are robots. I mean, the fact that they'll be able to bounce back, and hopefully Damar will be very similar in the sense that he'll be able to bounce back relatively quickly, and hopefully maybe next year we'll see him back on the pitch, which I think would be quite nice.
I think it'd be great for everyone, but as you say, I'm just not sure how the NFL protocol, is there even a protocol for it, because obviously something like that is obviously going to have to be super monitored, but I guess it's
there's definitely not, right, which is why there was so much question on what they're going to do with the game. Right. Like it was such an unprecedented thing. Injuries obviously happen, even ambulances hitting the field for sure. But something like that, I mean, when you see someone immediately getting CPR on the field, that's a very different feel than, any other injury. Like you're generally watching for somebody's thumbs up as they're leaving the field. And even though they're, hurt in whatever capacity, you're looking for that, and for him to not be moving in any way, obviously that made a very different impact all around.
Yeah, I think because it was so early in the game as well, wasn't it? And you saw from the other players' reactions, the Bills guys all getting in a prayer circle and all that. You could just tell there was something more than a bad break or a pull or a knee going or some of the other horrific injuries we've seen this year. You could tell that this one was different, and it's not something you would hope there was a precedent for because it means it's a regular occurrence. So
it's one of those where it's the
scenario.
sort of thing that needs to now be considered going forward because it's happened, and it's one of those things where me being from my sort of work background, it's the sort of thing where really you should have had that in place, but it's also a case of this probably has never ever happened before.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that you would have those protocols in place is probably very, very slim. So I think, now that they know what obviously the situation that's happened, they've dealt with it the way they have. Next season, they need to make sure, to be honest, from this point forward, they need to be making sure that,
defibrillators are available on every pitch and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, there is, because there's an ambulance on staff, at every game. So, the medical equipment's there for sure. As far as planning for it, like I don't know how you could logistically really do that, because they have, the complement of games each week. So it'd be really hard to make up a game or schedule accordingly, right? Because you'd almost have to have a week in between each game. There's just no way that you could effectively do that. So, the way that they've handled it, I think, is as good as it could really be. And of course, the way that they've laid out the way the postseason is going to go, obviously it doesn't make everybody happy, but there's no way you could move the entire postseason from a financial standpoint. It just doesn't even make sense. So I think the route they took is really as good as they could have done, especially based on the fact they had 5 days to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that's true.
I think they were lucky in the sense that this didn't have as massive an impact on the playoffs in terms of people in and out. I think that obviously that it could have been a lot more complicated. I'm not saying that it's more of a case of that they, because of the two teams that were involved, and there was no really sort of real ramifications in terms of playoffs. You're absolutely right. It's been easier, I think, to deal with than say if it had been someone who was on the precipice of the playoffs. And that.
Prime example would be this week's games for you, Bo, right? If something like this happened in your game, where if you win, it has the connotations of you're in, depending on obviously the Packers, and we'll get into all of that ins and outs. But yeah, if it's a game where the win-lose scenario is, well, if you win, you're in. If you lose, you're out type thing. It definitely.
It's definitely a huge difference between, a potential 1 or 2 seed versus you're watching on TV or you're getting in. So, yeah, obviously that lended itself well to being those teams. But I don't know that there would have been an easy answer. Like in that scenario, if you're going off of win percentage, then, you could have ended up with a coin flip to get into the playoffs, which would have been crazy in its own way.
And as you say, they've done as much as they can to mollify everybody that they could. As you said, a path that they've chosen is the best that they could have hoped for in the circumstances. With 5 days to go, you can't push it back a week. You can't delay the whole league. It's a machine that would wouldn't take a 2 week sort of let's just have a think moment, would it? It just rolls.
At the end of the day, it's one of those things where people aren't going to be happy with the outcome. But be realistic. Why did it happen? Because someone nearly died. That's what's more important. And the fact that they are alive, they are up and they're talking. Yeah, it's for you as your franchise in terms of everything that's going on. It's crap. But in the grand scheme of things, is it really
going to? Yeah, it doesn't really weigh up, does it? And that's the bit that I think majority of fans have kept that sense of realism or that perspective. I know some Bengals fans are like hey, we've been shafted here because we might end up playing away in Baltimore. It's like, yeah, but come on, even that minority, it's almost like a minority sort of outspoken one. And I suppose we can't really talk about this without mentioning Skip Bayless and the fact that he was lambasted, absolutely crucified for, in effect, rereading his tweet. I don't think it was too bad what he was saying. It was kind of instantaneous, and I think the issue was he was saying it in the moment without any sort of full understanding of the ramifications and how serious it actually was. And even his tweet was like, "This could have ramifications to the playoffs," which seems irrelevant right now. So even from my reading that, it was like he was talking head. He was making a point that yes, it was an important game and it has playoff ramifications. But that seems unimportant right now.
I think more the emotional side from everyone else is really sort of maybe exploded. Had it been just a case of a player went down, he was down for ages, there wasn't the case that he basically had died and come back to life essentially. Had that not been the case, and a lot of emotions around people's own personal views and things like that, it may not have been seen as negative as it maybe came across. But at the same time, with anything to do with social media, you've got to read the situation before you post, and that's he'll learn from it. He'll realize that he'll stand by his position, but he'll realize maybe it wasn't the best time to be tweeting that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Like if it was a normal injury where somebody was carted off, but it's the thumbs up, they're okay.
He's been down for 10 minutes. So they've got the oxygen bag on his leg and stuff. It's a broken leg. It's bad, but you can kind of expect it. I think.
And your team is going to move on from there, right? Like that ultimately the game's going to resume. Everything's going to be okay. It's the way that he worded it that really came across tone deaf, and that's where he got crucified. There are plenty of ways that he could have worded that in a way that wouldn't have looked so bad, but the optics of it was just horrendous. And timing, obviously, because the guy is still down on the field, but we already knew he was getting CPR. It's like, man, that's a rough way to approach that. So, I mean, in a way, he deserved to get kind of burned at the stake there, just based on timing alone.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think one of the big things is the fact that in that situation, I mean, when playing football, I've been on a pitch where someone's broken their leg. It's not nice. It does affect you. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee someone nearly dying on a pitch is going to affect the whole team a hell of a lot more. And the
opposition, right? It's if a player on your side goes down in your team game, it affects you mentally, and it's like, you're always in the back of your mind, hope that's not too bad or whatever else. But if it's a knee or a leg or whatever else, it's in the back of your head, it's going to niggle you. Something like that's not going to not just affect you, your teammates, but everyone who was anywhere near it, especially professional athletes who just see somebody like that. I mean, kind of an innocuous tackle. I mean, it was a hit, but it wasn't anything.
It wasn't any different to you see every day. Like
that is 100% routine tackle. You wouldn't think two thoughts about it, and the way that he popped up and went down, you actually thought it was going to be a concussion or something. Like almost that boxer's chin, right? Where you pop up and you're like, oh, nope.
Yep.
Like that's initially what I thought was he probably has a concussion or something. Might have, because of the way he came in and wrapped him up, maybe he caught the helmet under the chin and
or got a knee somewhere
or whatever, right? But I obviously didn't foresee the way it went down. But it's
I think it's
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say there's one thing that's probably worth mentioning in terms of the whole thing, and it's just to sort of is how T. Higgins has been treated by some people.
That is crazy.
Like, you just think in the grand scheme of it, it was an innocuous challenge. He didn't mean to hurt him. He didn't mean to essentially for what to happen. It was a freak accident. And I just think the way that some people have reacted towards him is just utterly disgusting. I think in any situation like that, and to be honest, it was nice that his family
Josh Allen kind of came out as well,
contacted him and said, "Look, you've done nothing wrong. We're not and basically just said, at the end of the day, it's not your fault. We're here for you," sort of thing. And I think, a lot of it will have just been trolls on the internet, and you got to take a lot of what they say as a pinch of salt, but it does hurt the individuals. They are still people.
Still human. And, from T. Higgins' point of view, how horrible he must be feeling that, he was the guy that was part and parcel of the tackle. Did he do something? Mentally he's thinking, well, can I do that again? From a professional athlete, how does he approach the next tackle? Is he going to have that in the back of his mind? And then to be trolled by idiots on the internet and whatever else, it's just like, come on. He's dealing with enough things. The last thing he needs is some keyboard warrior telling him he almost killed somebody or something. It's sickening. So it's good, as you say, the Hamlin family reached out. The Buffalo Bills are very vocal in any of their press conferences. I know Josh Allen took a lot of time out of his press conference to clarify that the behaviour and how T. Higgins has been treated is just sickening and does not deserve it. So hopefully that gets through as well.
That was it. Amazingly distasteful that he's getting the attacks that he is, because again, when you watch the play, all he did was brace for impact and try and get an extra yard. It was the most just routine tackle
standard
ever.
Routine, quick slant run tackle, DB wraps up, bounce up, and away you go. And it's like
that is a hit that you take all day, every day. You pop up, off you go. And, it just happened to be the wrong hit at the wrong second. And, there we are.
I read something. It was like that. The impact was like there's a 30 millisecond window of that actually, that hit had to happen at just the right angle within this 30 millisecond window of the heart doing whatever it was doing and you think the chances of, come on.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, I guarantee, this is obviously from my perspective, the first time I've ever known anything like this happen. Obviously, it may have before in terms of the NFL. I don't think it has. I do think it is sort of a 1 in a million thing. And I mean, you think about how many of those tackles are done every single week, every single game, every single year. Yeah. You're looking
at practice too.
Yeah, you're looking at probably 999,000 to 1 that would ever happen, if not more.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably less, really, because you figure you also don't have that happening in any of the college games or any of the high school games, or the odds of you collecting that exact hit is so low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. To be fair, a lot of the people around T. Higgins, a lot of the everyone who's sort of involved with the Bengals will be telling him that and will be reiterating that for him to not, because it is going to affect him. And you may see maybe in the first time that he goes in for a tackle that he doesn't look the exact same, but hopefully once he does the first one and nothing happens, that'll give him a bit more of that reassurance.
You hope that the Bengals in practice, when they do a run through and stuff, they kind of give him a few of those just so that that he gets to understand that you did nothing wrong, just shoulder into brace for impact, a couple of those in practice maybe just to make him knock it off and to not go into a game, because if he does, you've got to worry that the concern there is that if he doesn't go in and he doesn't brace, he's causing himself an injury by backing out of a potential tackle. And that's, we all know, as if we've ever played any sports, if you kind of go half into something, the more likely is you're the one who's going to come off worse. So yeah, it's a horrible situation, and we hope that it sounds like NFLPA are all over it in terms of providing support and mental guidance and all the support and everything else that every player needs. And fingers crossed, it's one of those, and it is like the NFL, get them back on the field, get them back doing what they've done all of their lives, and that's some form of normality will resume for them. But obviously for the Hamlin family, not just yet, but everything sounds positive so far.
And I did like the fact that he got up and the first thing he said was, "Did we win the game?"
Did we win the game?
And the only response was, "Yes, you won. You won. You beat life. You
won the game of life," or whatever it was that the doctor said.
That is any true athlete ever, though. Is
knocked out, whatever it is, the first thing you want to care about is, did you win? Did we win? Yeah.
Or did I catch the ball, or whatever the scenario was? That is 100% the first thing you're going to ask. So when they said that's what he had, it's like, that makes sense.
So we've got a couple of comments there. Hi, the Band Sports Show. I think he's jumped in saying, Happy Friday, how you doing? Thanks for jumping in. We've got the East Coast Red and Gold podcast abducted to say Go Niners, and we'll definitely get on to those in a minute. So we've got some interesting games coming up this week.
Yeah.
Sam, Bo, we're going to start with yours because in the nicest possible way, it's the huge game. Well, not for you, Sam.
So it's a huge game for us, and realistically, it's a huge game for you, but just in a different way, right? So obviously, you guys can act as a spoiler, which would suck, but
well, it depends.
But
it depends.
You have some guys on your team that are auditioning for contracts or for positions on other teams, right? So Baker's looking to have a good day. You guys have a couple of people around the team that were backups, that contracts are coming up, that are trying to put out good tape for other teams as well. So it's not like you guys aren't coming to this game trying to win. You guys have plenty of people on the roster that need to have some good tape to wrap that season up. Obviously for us, it is a must-win scenario if we want to have any chance of going into the playoffs. And of course, even with that, we don't control our own destiny. So now we're rooting for Detroit. And honestly, as a Seahawks fan, even if we were to drop the game to the Rams, I would still be rooting for Detroit just because of that amazing turnaround. And Dan Campbell's such a likable guy. Like, you want him to have some success. So in any scenario of how it goes down, I still want Green Bay to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, part of me would think it'd be quite nice to spoil the party. I think we've taken our hits this year, and we've been given a lot of stick for the fact that we have been probably the worst team to run it back, as it were. But if we could maybe do one over on Seattle, if we can maybe if the Lions can get in, that'd be quite nice to see Goff back in the playoffs. I mean, obviously he gets a lot of support from the Rams with him being an ex-Ram player. I think he's
still paying his wages.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to see him get there. And to be honest, if he got there over the Seahawks, I mean, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
And I suppose the joy of the NFL doing its rescheduling a few years ago is that, even if it's a non-game in a kind of overarching, because it's divisional, there's still that extra added little bit, isn't there? Because it's a divisional round. You don't want to let them get away with it. There's that extra niggle. So, as you say, Sam, I think there's a spoiler aspect that maybe, the Rams will go into that. It's the last game of the season. It's not been a great season for them.
It's a reputational thing as well. It's like, you don't want to. We've already lost twice to the Niners this year, which we do every year, to be fair. But we've lost twice to the Niners this year. We usually do 1-on-1 with Seattle, and then we normally steamrail the Cardinals. So
it's actually why Jason didn't show up today.
He's Jason, like the rest of the Cardinals, has mailed it in for the rest of the. Yeah. Kidding, JT, kidding.
Just so we can sort of maintain that status quo. I think we need to get that win. If we get it, then great. If we don't, then it sums up our season, which it is what it is. And like you say, people are playing for
disaster.
Yeah, people are playing for contract. People are playing for their
in
careers.
The shop window and stuff. Yeah,
it gives us a nice idea as to where we are if these players go down again. Do we need to replace them as backups, or do we need to,
do we rely on them? Can you look for them? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be it's a good game, but if we lose, it's a throwaway game. If we win, great.
Yeah, Bo, from your side of things, I suppose it's a weird one because even if you roll them and you kind of win and you're in, your destiny's kind of out of your hands, isn't it? So how do the Hawks approach it
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's that cliche. You need to go 1-0, right? I mean, you control what you can control, and so ultimately you need to go in and win the game, and what happens from there is what it is, right? I mean, if you can go in, get the win, you still finish with a winning record on the season, which is a huge win when you consider most media places had them as a 2 or 3 win team.
Yeah.
So for them to go 9-8 is awesome. Obviously, if you can sneak in, that's really cool. They've had a couple of things that are trending the right direction over the last couple of weeks. Kenneth Walker's
not listed on the injuries. He's not listed on injuries for this week. So
yeah. Well, I haven't seen the official injury report yet, but I know Walker's in. But he's had 200-yard rushing games in a row. So I mean, it's trending the right direction for if you were going to go into the playoffs. I think the Hawks could potentially steal a wild card win. Beyond that's kind of it. Especially
who you play in the first round.
It's really hard to 3 times.
Yeah. I was just going to look at that because if you do get in and the Lions do you a favor, then you're the 7th seed, which means that as long as we beat the Cardinals, who we're playing their 5th string, I think, at the moment, the way that it sounds like.
Yeah, they're playing target.
Yeah, they've just pulled some guy. I think Jason. That's why Jason's not here. He's suited up and he's got his kit on. On Sunday.
Absolutely.
So yeah, the chances are we get a 3rd divisional round, if you like, because it's Niners against the Seahawks.
Yeah, well, and I mean, when you look over the course of just the NFL in general, there's been plenty of times that division rivals have played each other, in the wild card or divisional round or whatever, that, they play each other twice a year. It is really hard to beat a team 3 times in a single year because you see each other all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So if we get in, I would worry about that game if I were you a little bit. Despite the fact that you guys are clearly the better team, just, top to bottom. But man, that'd be a tough match.
You say that the second matchup was much tougher than the first one. I think we swept you pretty convincingly week 3, whatever it was.
Yeah, that game was rough.
That game was rough for you guys. You scored your points on a muffed field goal or something. You had no offense to speak of. But the second game, obviously, learnt from, tweaked a few things, had a better game, and whatever else. And so, yeah, I mean, as Sam, we know from the Rams, we've divisionally, we've got the rule of the Rams, but we couldn't get past you in the playoffs. So we've got the 6-0 record or whatever it is divisionally in the regular season, but kind of you won the NFC Championship game because you don't often beat your divisional rivals 3 times in a season. It's a risk that if you do get in, then yeah, I mean that's of course as long as we get the 2 seed, and we should, because as I say, the Cardinals team that sounds like they're getting put out isn't going to be. I mean, it's JJ Watt's last game, so the defense might be up for a little bit, but what are the defense going to be able to do against our offense compared to what our offense is going to do against because I don't even know. I mean, maybe they'll start Connor, but I mean everybody else in that Cardinals team seems to be.
Elijah Mitchell's back, isn't he? He's going to play.
Mitchell's going to be back. Debo's going to be back. He's going to. Shanahan's already said McCaffrey's going to get a few.
McCaffrey probably won't play a lot, will he? He'll probably play a few snaps in the first or second half, and
first quarter, first half of the second quarter. Probably see where we are.
It really depends on what Arizona's defense does, though, because if they're playing you tough, this game matters for you seeding wise. And
and that's the worst thing that could have happened to us last week was the way that the games kind of rolled, and now suddenly we have the 1 seed on the line, which means we can't use week 18 as an extra bye week in the nicest possible sense, because normally this would be a bye week, whatever game we'd play Josh Johnson at QB and we'd be running out the 3rd and 4th strings because we need everybody fit. But because suddenly now that 1 seed is on, could be there, and you have to go for it because. Although the Giants it's like for the Bears fans finding solace in anything really.
Yeah, right.
If the Packers win, this is the thing. This is another thing. Is if the Packers win, the last time that I remember this stat rightly, the last time that Rodgers threw 11 interceptions in a season.
Yeah, they won a Super Bowl.
They went, and they went on the road to do it as well. They weren't Lambeau.
Yeah, they also went in very similar situation as they are now. So apparently them being dominant is not how they win Super Bowls. Which makes sense because the Giants don't do it either, right?
I think
the Giants can only win if it's a wild card.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about the seeding I was just about to say is it sounds like, the Giants are 6th seed no matter what. They win, lose, draw, whatever that game, they're going to be 6th seed.
Yeah, that tie really solidified that spot.
Yeah, so by the sounds of it, they're using this week as a bye week, which means
I know they're sitting Saquon. I don't know who else they're sitting, but I know Saquon is basically not going to play,
which basically is their whole offense.
It is 1,000% of that offense.
Yeah. So then you think, well, then maybe does that take the 1 seed off of the table, and therefore do we? But then we still need to make sure we win because 2 seed will be beneficial because it means a home field for the NFC Championship game because the Eagles are going to lose to Dallas and therefore, we'll be the highest seed and we still want to be playing it. Yeah, it's all those connotations.
We got some wishful thinking going on.
Oh, yeah, it's already kind of all planned through. Yeah. Everything's running through Levi Stadium.
I hope that game, I hope the Eagles Dallas game happens just because it'd be cool if these two teams would play with their starting quarterback at some point.
Because the Eagles trashed the Cowboys early on when Dak was out, didn't they? And then Hurts was out when it was like a ding-dong 40-34 or whatever it was between them. It would be nice to get, first 11 against first 11 at some point, Yeah,
no, that'd be amazing to actually watch those two teams really go at it. It was disappointing to have a starting quarterback out in both.
Yeah, it just took that edge off, didn't it? Because the build up to that sort of Philly-Dallas game was huge, and then suddenly Jalen Hurts was down, and it was like, it really, really kind of just put a damper on everything. In the flip side, it's really twisted up that sort of seeding run, and suddenly, we're in for the 1 seed, so we've got to go for it. So therefore, we can't really play all, the second or third string. So McCaffrey, I reckon first quarter, in the first half, we'll if we can get out there and put 24, 27 points up, I think then the second half will be, okay, you're resting pretty much Bosa, Armstead, Kinlaw, most of the defense will be rested up. Brock will probably come out and whatever else. So, although I don't know if they'll take Brock out.
They won't.
Can they
more reps.
Yeah,
he still
won't.
Needs reps. It's only his
they won't take
start.
Purdy out.
Yeah,
they won't take Purdy out. They'll take some of the other items out, but they won't take Purdy out. This is probably actually one of my favorite Week 17 in any other year, but Week 18 this year is all but the Giants game matters.
Yeah,
which is so rare for the last game of the season. Usually, it's a lot of people sitting people or
everything's done and dusted 2 weeks ago, isn't it?
Yeah, like most of the time, it doesn't make any difference. And quite literally in every single game except for the Giants themselves, the games are important, whether it's
something riding on them,
people trying to get in. So it adds an element to Week 18 that's kind of great and rare.
It's been missing for a few seasons, isn't it, as you say, because most of the time it's stitched up and done, and it's like you're just going through the motions, don't get injured, don't get hurt, get everybody through it. Whereas having so much on the line for so many teams. Interesting. I had a question actually, Bo. You just thought about it. Timings of the games. Do you think Green Bay have an even bigger advantage by having the late game?
Not really, because they're playing Detroit, so they're both North teams. So I don't really see the timing being anything. I think for Detroit, because they've turned this season around, they'll embrace the spoiler role if Seattle wins. Like, I think they're going into this game as a winning record is a real win for this team, just overall. And so I think they'll go into this playing hard no matter what, whether the Hawks win or not. I think they want to kind of not only finish on a positive note of a winning season, but also that exclamation point of we're not going to go, but neither are you.
Yeah. And also,
I think the late game probably doesn't matter. And when you look at the lineup of what could have been the late game, it's probably the best game they could have thrown in that slot.
Yeah, because even as you say, I suppose it doesn't necessarily matter because the Lions there, they've got the chance to kind of put a beat down on Green Bay. They've got a chance to end the Aaron Rodgers era. And as you say, the spoiler, the winning season is a big thing for them and a big marker for a massive turnaround and a fill up going into next season if that's the case. And if it's not, if Baker Mayfield has a Denver game and actually shreds the Hawks, then it's all to play for, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, he shredded. I mean,
it's going to be one of those games where, no matter what, the Packers want to win it. So it didn't matter whether they were playing before Seahawks or after Seahawks or at the same time. To them, they were always needing that win. Yes, it may be. It could potentially be that if Seattle do lose, that that would mean there's a little bit more or less. There's a bit less pressure on Packers, but like you say, Lions are going to be going all out no matter what. I think they want to beat their divisional rivals. They want to be able to finish that season in a positive. There's so much to it.
And the Lions are playing with house money, right? Like they were supposed to be bad anyway, so they get to come out and just go. Whereas Green Bay, even though they started bad, the expectation at the beginning of the year was you had the back-to-back reigning MVP, right? You had a team that had essentially won 12 or 13 games the last 3 years in a row. They're expected to do well. So they underperformed, and now they're trying to get in. Whereas on the other end, you have the Lions, who were supposed to be bad and are right there.
Were bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were, right? They started, 1-6?
1-6, yeah.
Horrible. And then, I mean, they've absolutely just come together and turned into a real team in the second half of the season. So they get to come out already way ahead of where anyone thought they would be. Whereas I think Green Bay at home has some pressure to perform that the Lions don't necessarily have. And because even if the Lions end up losing this game, this season is a win overall because of the way they turned it around.
Yeah.
So I think the Lions can absolutely steal this win on the road just because they're going to have less pressure on them just based on expectation alone.
Yeah, and maybe the Lambeau Field, home field, isn't such an advantage when the pressure's on and, they are all like the expectation, as you say, is that, no matter what happens in the Hawks game, but if the Packers have to win, they have to win. Whereas the Eagles, as you say, the Lions are out there going, it's a win-win. This season's been great. It's been a roller coaster. It's been a ride. We never expected to be here. We never expected to be in the fight for a playoff. Let's just go out and do it. Yeah.
And I do think maybe that, I think the comment earlier said that the later game does actually give Lions a bit more advantage. I do sort of agree with it because obviously if the Seahawks lose, then it doesn't matter what happens. If the Seahawks win, the Lions now have a chance to get rid of Packers out or to pull the Packers out of it. So
yeah, I mean,
the Seahawks lose and Detroit win. Detroit go in.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how it breaks down, they can stop the Packers from going. So that'll be their ultimate goal. Obviously, if the Hawks lose, then they're playing for a playoff spot, which would be huge, obviously. But even if the Hawks win, I think they want to dispatch the Packers just because of 20 years of bad blood.
Yeah, you don't want your division rival getting in at your cost of your own place, do you? Even if you've got a chance to stop them having a playoff run, being in the playoff
exactly where the Rams are.
Yeah,
it's exactly where the Rams are. Right? They're not going. That's been true for a few weeks. But if they can absolutely stop someone else from going, you're going to try that. Obviously, you want to win a game no matter what. But if you can dash somebody's playoffs hope, of course you're going to do that.
we've already done you a favor by beating the Broncos, so
I mean, everybody beat the Broncos. I don't.
Most people. Okay, everybody but us. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I've tried hard to forget about it. Most Niners fans have tried hard to forget about it.
Oh man!
But it's interesting because then if we win on Sunday, then we've finally done the 6-0 sweep, and it's been the first time that the Niners would have swept the division since. I think it's 94, some way back since a long time since we've done it. I think the Rams did it 2018. More recently, I think the Rams did the sweep, but it's not something that happens. It's not. You don't often hear of a team sweeping the division completely. So there's that added aspect. It's a toughie to do. So I say I think the Rams did it maybe a few years back when you were on the sweep. But it'll be that added little bonus. And, you say players in that game are going to be playing for little bits of records and regular season. I know Bosa's pushing for the regular season sack count and stuff like that. So you got to hope that they give them enough time to maybe get some of those, and then bench some of the starters. Maybe give Bosa a half, see if he can get the sacks in, and then get him out of there.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of players that are playing for their own bonuses and stuff like that as well. Aren't they?
That's the thing, right? Is there's usually bonuses tied to those. So a lot of times coaches will allow you to try and get in there for that, just because of the sheer dollar value that's usually tied to those incentive bonuses. So I would imagine, like in Bosa's case, they'll give him some latitude as far as time, but. I don't know. I don't think that game's going to be the blowout that you think it'll be.
No, I don't think it is.
I think the Cardinals defense is going to come to play for Watt's last game.
Yeah, I got like a 2010 game or something there. It's not going to be a blowout. I think they're 14-point favorites, but I can't see it because.
Oh, you definitely don't cover on that.
No,
I can see Bosa getting the sacks because that line is just absolutely dreadful. But
and the guy from Target playing under center, whoever it is.
So I mean,
they got an upgrade.
They'll step up defensively, but their offensive line is absolutely woeful. So maybe put Bosa on that first quarter, let him get a few sacks, and then pull him off for the rest of the game. He's probably going to be what.
Do you know who gets the start for the Cardinals? Is Colt McCoy going to be in there?
No.
It's
Jason.
He is on IR.
It's Trey McSorley's also out.
Yeah, so he's the backup, I think.
He's the backup to the backup's backup. Cool.
Yeah. I think
they're going deep into their.
I couldn't remember if McCoy was going to make it back for the last game or not.
No.
David Blau.
I mean, so
I think he won a game.
So he has won a couple games.
Yeah.
He has won a couple games. That would be hilarious.
It would be so. I mean, it happened with the Cardinals game last time. We were on a roll and we rolled in. And Colt McCoy came in and won 9-6 on a horrendous game or something like that. So we've got history with the Cardinals, but David Blau will start. I think D-Hop's out as well. So
he is out. He's officially out.
Oh,
so
okay. You know what? You guys might cover. Never mind. You guys might
cover the 14 now. It's just like a fourth string QB, no wide receiver one.
Yeah, a wet paper bag for.
It's going to be wet as well.
It's James Conner. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. It's James Conner. Maybe Marcus Good. Maybe Marcus Brown. If he
that get out of hand in a hurry. Actually,
but it is apparently the weather's the tight end. He looked a pretty decent little. He had flashes in the Mexico game. Yeah, so. But I think the weather also is going to play a part. I think it's supposed to be another miserable wet day in San Francisco, so it'll be hand the ball to Connor, and we know that's going to be coming. So it's kind of just stack the box and then go see if this guy can actually beat us in the air, which is unlikely when he doesn't have D-Hop there. So,
well, I mean, even if it was going to be a nice game, you're going to stack the box and make him beat you in the air because the odds of Blau making a mistake is super high.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe that 4-point spread. Maybe it should be, but it could well be, as I say, we get 2 or 3 scores up. 24 in the first half. If we can score that, 4 TDs, and then I think we're done and dusted. We bench everybody, and then say, do your worst to the second or third string in the second half. We don't care. It's garbage time now, and fingers crossed, Vikings continue their implosion so that we at least a second seed. And I can't see the Eagles losing to a second or third string Giants team because I think that's what the Giants will put out. So
see. There's absolutely no way the Eagles lose that game. I mean,
the
the
Eagles have
Giants
that
are
right.
essentially sitting half their team.
Yeah.
So,
and I think Hertz is back this one. I think if Hertz is available, he's going to play to get
Hurts
some.
isn't playing. They've
Is he
said
not?
he's not going to play. No, he's fit. He's in training, but he's not going to play. They've said
Why would
whether
you?
they
Right?
tried to maybe put him in for a few reps or whatever. But
yeah, I was figuring they'd throw him in for a series or something just to knock some rust off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would have expected. If he is fit, I'd expected maybe 2 or 3 series for him just to get back into the swing of it, get under center, remembering the call, that sort of stuff, and then go right. Yeah, you're fine. You're back. Let's go.
You'll probably see the likes of maybe Miles Sanders will probably not play too much. I mean, Gainwell's done well when he stepped up. Boston Scott's there, so you'll probably see. It will be again that because as long as they put out enough, a bit like you, as long as they put out enough to win, it'll be a case of resting a few players.
I think that's really the key, right? Is they got to make sure that they jump out enough that they can rest their guys. Because, I mean, winning the game is incredibly important, especially for the Eagles, right? Because that's the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
So if they lose, all of a sudden there becomes some real questions on whether or not Dallas can catch them or or even the Niners, right? Yeah. So that becomes very interesting. So I think they have a lot of incentive to play starters probably longer than they'd like to, just because they really need to sew that win up.
Yeah. Unless, of course, as you say, the Giants team just fold and they give them 18, 24 points in quarter and a half, and then it's like, well, thanks, you guys aren't even trying because you're already for, you're saving yourself for the wildcard game that you're already in for. So why are we even bothering? So it'll be an interesting one. That game may be done and dusted early, or it might, as you say, they might have to stick around a bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the
and it'd be interesting for the Giants how they do that, because even if it's not the main starters, the chance for them to put some heat on the Eagles, or maybe do some damage to the Eagles team in terms of it's a horrible thought when we just talked about the beginning of this, but if you can hurt a potential rival in the playoffs, that the Eagles are in, that you're in the playoffs. If you can, cause them to play harder and maybe impact on their players, cause some tiredness or whatever else, then you're going to take that advantage, because you never know if you might have to play them again, right?
Well, especially if you could potentially knock them out of that first seed. Now, again, they're not going to play some of their starters, so I don't foresee that really being a thing. But if somehow they were able to do that, all of a sudden you may not have to play them again in the playoffs, right? They may get taken out in the wild card round by somebody else. Odds are low, but, entirely possible. So even though they don't necessarily have anything to play for seeding wise, I mean, they can drastically.
You get a chance to run. Yeah, you can imagine if a second string defensive lineman on the Giants gets a clean shot at Jalen Hurts, he's not going to not take it, right?
Yeah.
No,
because
that guy wants that highlight reel. I mean, you can
highlight
hear that
reel.
you're going to take that shot.
Take the shot. You might get a bonus for it, but it might also knock Jalen Hurts out of the playoff. I mean,
you're looking at, again, similar to us, like these second string players that are going to play, they're playing for their careers. They're playing for, that ability to be able to say, I'm ready to step up, or I'm ready to compete, or I'm ready to go somewhere else and play for someone who actually wants me. So it's not, I don't think whenever you're playing, yes, maybe the quality isn't as good in terms of the players. That's the reason why they're second string. But a lot of it is a case of they're still going to fight hard no matter who they are. And they may surprise. There may be a few surprises. It may be straightforward, as it most inevitably will be. It could also.
You never know. There might be some flashes, isn't there? You might get one of those players who's been on the fringes and suddenly takes their shot and has a storming game, and puts himself in the shop window. Or especially for the Giants team, suddenly you're like, oh, hang on, maybe he's played himself into a playoff spot. He can now start the playoff game next week because he came in at linebacker and lit the show up and whatever else.
And if they can cause enough trouble, then they may have to play their first string players for a bit longer, which then obviously if they get the first seed, then it doesn't really matter. They get a week off. But maybe if it's someone, maybe for like the Vikings, maybe if like their only way of, I suppose, the impact being there is that make them a bit tighter, and that's the Bears way of just putting one on the Vikings.
just laying them on them.
Yeah, but it's I think if you look back the fact that there's going to be a lot of teams that are probably just going to rest a lot of players, and you look at it more, individually at the players and also at what they can do to other teams, it does make Week 18 a bit more interesting. And like you say, there's certainly a lot more to play for this time than I think there probably has been in the last 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, and like you say, like the second stringers, there is a decline in ability to some degree, right? Because that's why they're second.
Consistency, isn't it? It's the consistency of the second stringers, and they don't.
Yeah, like
they can give you the 8 to 10, but they can also give you a 3 and a 4 game type thing. So yeah,
exactly. Well, and of course, usually what ends up really hurting, second stringers that are out there is they're not getting those first team reps. So a lot of times it's penalties. Usually what you see in those second string guys isn't necessarily that they're playing terrible. It's because they're going to have holding calls and offsides and false starts and stuff like that. And it's just because they're not taking those reps. So it's not necessarily that the drop off is quite as dramatic as, some of those first string guys, but yeah.
But as you say, a fun Week 18 ahead, because there is a lot more riding on it this time around than there has been for a fair number of seasons. So we'll be tuning in avidly come Sunday to watch the teams kind of finalise their seeding, finalise where they go, who's in, who's out, who goes to the Pro Bowl with, go and play flag in Vegas for a while, or who actually has meaningful football to play in January.
I love that it's going to be a flag game. It's probably going to be more competitive than the games have been over the last decade.
Absolutely. I think actually, and the skills games and stuff. I mean, I remember watching all those skills games with Vinny Testaverde and all those, Jim kind of turning up in sunglasses and just kind of hitting balls into dustbins or moving carts and stuff. And
to be honest, that's what the Pro Bowl should be. The Pro Bowl shouldn't be. I get why they do it, and obviously it's the best of the best players, but none of them are going to want to go out there and get injured and do something stupid in a match. Make it fun. Have them do. These are the best players that have been voted the best players. Let them showcase their abilities in fun challenges.
Do crazy receiving one-handed challenges or whatever else it is, stuff like that. As you say, in QBs, that who's got the furthest throw and who can hit the buckets from whatever angle and that sort of stuff. As you say, make it fun. Give it
like fun 3-on-3s and stuff like that. Just something to be a bit more interesting than just we're going to have the best of the AC versus the best of the NFC, and they're not going to
tackle. They're not going to stop anything. Then it's almost flag football, but with pads on, and it was never it was tackling or anything.
It was worse because it was 2-hand touch.
Yeah,
right. I mean, flag is at least going to be guys trying to juke each other and stuff. Whereas the way the Pro Bowl had been is literally they would just touch them and that was it.
It was like you couldn't even put a move on them or anything.
Yeah. So I think it's actually going to be way more competitive and fun to watch than it's been for sure.
And especially as you say, you're going to have professional athletes out there, even if it's the Pro Bowl and it's a game or whatever else. Once it starts, that competitive edge will start to eat through, especially as you say, because it's flag and you can put some moves and you can some jukes and whatever else. So, and it's not just that simple touch you're out type thing. I can foresee some of those skill players kind of starting to get a little bit more. They just can't help that competitive edge coming through. So it might actually be worth watching for the first time in 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So where we stand now, obviously it's the end of the regular season, end of the NFC roundtable. Bo, who knows? Maybe we need to do another NFC playoff review because it might be an NFC West playoff. I'm happy to kind of call this, and we can either wrap it up now and set us up for next season, or do we want to do an NFC sort of playoff picture next week?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, I would do it through the playoffs anyway. I mean, I'm going to watch all the games regardless.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're not going to watch them, even if it's playoffs, right? You're going to watch every playoff game you can. So happy to kind of call it.
If the Niners lose, we'll be able to laugh at you. So.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen until February the 13th. You won't be able to laugh at me until then.
I mean, I will be a little sad if you get to hang a banner on us. That would be a bummer. But but yeah, no, I'm definitely down to continue to talk through the playoffs because
Absolutely.
I mean, again, it's playoff football. Like that's always exciting, whether your team's in it or not. It's some of the best football of the year. Not generally wild card weekend, but the rest of the weekends are generally the best football all year.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Wild card weekend,
Wild card weekend can always be a bit. Yeah, you've got to get rid of the wheat and the chaff, haven't you? You've got to get rid of the NFC South because that's got to be a one and done team. Surely, whoever gets through from there, because. Are they getting through on a losing record again? Is that another?
So they very well might because Tampa has the Falcons, right? And I think the Falcons might actually sneak that game out because it's not like the Bucs have been playing well. No. So I think the Falcons could steal a win there, and then they finish at 8-9.
That'd be awful, wouldn't it?
It was like what was it like? Was it Washington a couple of seasons ago?
Yeah, I mean, it's only happened twice. Seattle did it the first time. What were we 7-9, I think, when we won it.
16. It wasn't a 16-game season then, was it? For 10
years. Yeah. No, it sure was. Yeah, it was. It was bad. Our whole division was just trash. Like it was rough.
So it was like the NFC South then.
Well, half of it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were the first team to win a division with a losing record, and I believe that was the first season with Pete Carroll. So we got that going for us.
Yeah,
holding record.
Yeah, being the first. Wow, it's a record you really don't want to be bringing out and polishing too much, is it?
So some other teams could jump in there. That'd be cool.
I don't know. Being the worst defending Super Bowl champs is probably going to be up there as one of the worst things you can.
That's going to take. It's going to take some beating.
That one is rough. Yeah, that one is rough. That I've never seen. Like I've seen drop off for sure, right? Like that happens a lot, but
not to that
degree of drop off was impressive.
Yeah, we'll blame. It's all O-line injuries to start with. We can blame that. That's the little.
It's all Whitworth's fault for going. It's all Whitworth's fault for retiring, right? If he had stuck around.
I mean, that to be fair, that your O-line struggles have been amazing. At this point, have you had the same starting five at any given week now?
Yes, the last 2 weeks.
The last two? Oh, okay. Nice.
You're on the upswing. Just when you need it.
We went 15-15. That was the big thing. It was 15-15.
That's crazy. That is so bad.
And the thing is, we've even waived one of those O-liners as well. Bobby Evans got waived because he was utterly dreadful. He was causing a lot of problems.
Like, how bad do you got to play on a team that can't have the same starting five and you still get waived? Yeah. Like, that is next level.
How did you even get in a position in the first place? And it's like, how did you
make it
to walk onto the practice squad and wearing team kit and they kind of just went, hey, you're a big guy.
Yeah.
And you just walked, something like that. Cool. Gents, it's been a great time.
Yep.
Love the hour chatting with you guys. We'll catch up next Friday. When are we going to do this one?
So before we get out of here, if you're watching this show, make sure that you check out the show yesterday from Dan and Let's Talk Sports. It was supporting the Hamlin
GoFundMe
toy
page.
Drive. If you have a link to it, you should put it down below if you can.
I'm just getting it.
Absolutely support that. Help Hamlin's toy drive and watch the show. It was a great show. So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, it was a big thing that Dan put on yesterday. I think it was a couple of hours show that he put there.
Yep.
And as he was matching some of the donations and things like that, I'm desperately trying to find the link for that toy drive. Where is it? Come on. Nope. ESPN being absolutely useless.
I mean, worst case, you can throw it in after the fact, too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's out there somewhere. Everyone should know a toy drive is. That's the link, isn't it? There we go. Copy. Give me 30 seconds. I am going to just put the comments banners.
No pressure.
You would not believe how difficult this is to find it. Just save. show. Boom.
There we go.
Awesome.
It took a long time. That's it. Then everybody watching, anyone tuning in, anyone subscribing, please, as Bo says, go there, donate, help the family, the toy drive. I mean, that's gone through the roof. I think it's over about 7 million now. I think he struggled to make $2,500 on that the first couple of years he's done it. It's got and it goes to helping kids in pretty underprivileged areas. I think it's all around Pittsburgh where Hamlin, DeMar grew up, and other areas. So yeah, if anybody feels the need, wants to go and help and support, it's going towards his healthcare as well as potentially ongoing, care and whatever else he's going to need, as well as helping underprivileged children in some of the more hard to reach areas in some of those poorer areas of Pittsburgh and stuff. So go there, go fund me down the bottom, scrolling across, please go and donate. And as you say, Dan's 3-hour show last night was all about that. So go and tune in and listen to some interesting talk about fantasy football from some of the guys as well.
Yep.
There was some funny games in that one.
Absolutely.
Thanks for bringing that up. I meant to bring that up earlier when we were talking about it. So yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Everybody should go do that. And so there we go, folks. That's been the NFC Roundtable for 2022. And as also, we'll be back for the NFC Playoff Roundtable next week.
Still hitting them corners and them lolos.
It's the call of the Cardinals.
There's only one team, and they're the Seahawks.
Still taking my time to perfect the beat, and I still got love for the streets. It's the D.R.E. Representing for the gangsters all across the world. Still